The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stood at the heart of Nexera Prime. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species filled the massive chamber. Light from 3 distant suns poured through crystal windows, casting long shadows across the polished stone floor. This was where the galaxy made its decisions. This was where peace was kept and wars were ended. Today, however, someone wanted to start one. High Councilor Vorath of the Zolari Dominion stood at the central platform. His scaled skin shimmered blue under the lights. His 4 eyes scanned the crowd with confidence. The Zolari had grown powerful in the last century. Their fleets numbered in the thousands. Their colonies spread across 200 worlds. And now, Vorath wanted more. The Zolari Dominion requests permission to use the Orion Corridor, Vorath announced. His voice echoed through the hall. This route cuts through what some call human space. It will reduce our travel time to the outer territories by 60 years. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some representatives nodded. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. In the human section, Ambassador Lisa Monroe sat perfectly still. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had served as Earth's voice in this council for 20 years. She had seen many species come and go. She had seen empires rise and fall. And she had heard this kind of talk before. The humans have closed their borders for 2 centuries, Vorath continued. They trade with no one. They speak to no one. They hide in their little corner of the galaxy like frightened animals. I say we ignore their outdated warnings and take what is rightfully ours to use. Applause came from the Zolari section. Several younger species joined them. They had never seen a real war. They had never faced humanity. From the shadows of the elder seats, a thin voice rose. You speak of things you do not understand, young Vorath. The crowd turned. Elder Kethan of the Thrins slowly stood. His body was ancient, covered in wrinkled gray skin. His species lived for thousands of years. Kethan himself had seen the birth and death of dozens of civilizations. I was alive during the last human war, Kethan said. His voice was weak but steady. I watched the Varathi Collective try exactly what you suggest. They had 800 warships. They thought the humans were weak because they were quiet. They thought isolation meant fear. Kethan paused. The chamber had gone silent. The Varathi Collective no longer exists, he said. Not a single ship survived. Not a single colony remained. The humans erased them from the galaxy in 3 months. 3 months for an empire that had lasted 10,000 years. Vorath laughed. That was 2 centuries ago, Elder. Humans have grown soft. They have no allies. They have no expansion. They sit on their little worlds and do nothing. The galaxy has changed. The galaxy has changed, Kethan agreed. But humans have not. They remember everything. They forget nothing. And they do not forgive. Ambassador Lisa Monroe finally stood. The chamber fell silent once more. She walked slowly to the speaking platform, her footsteps echoing in the quiet. High Councilor Vorath, she said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. I speak to you not as a diplomat, but as a fellow living being. Please listen carefully. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every representative she could. 200 years ago, the Varathi killed 4 million human civilians. Men, women, and children. They bombed our colonies. They laughed while our people burned. They thought we would surrender. Lisa paused. Her expression did not change. We did not surrender. We responded. And when we were finished, there was no one left to accept their surrender. Every ship, every station, every world they held, gone. This was not anger. This was not revenge. This was simply the price they paid for their choice. Vorath shifted uncomfortably, but kept his confident smile. Threats, Ambassador? From a species that hides behind closed borders? No threats, Lisa said. Only truth. Human space is closed. It has always been closed. We do not want war. We do not seek conquest. We only want to be left alone. But if you enter our space without permission, you will not leave. This is not a warning. This is a fact. She turned to face Vorath directly. Your ships will be destroyed. Your fleet will burn. And when your people ask why, the answer will be simple. You were told not to come, and you came anyway. The chamber was completely silent. Even the Zilari delegates had stopped their confident whispers. Vorath stared at Lisa for a long moment. Then he smiled again, wider than before. The council has heard both sides, he said loudly. The Zilari Dominion will take the Arian corridor. We do not ask permission from species too afraid to defend their own territory. Let the humans hide. We will pass through whether they like it or not. He turned and walked back to his delegation. His officers cheered. Several other species, eager to please the rising power, applauded politely. Elder Kethan slowly sat back down. He closed his ancient eyes and said nothing more. He had seen this before. He knew what came next. Lisa Monroe walked calmly back to the human section. Her assistant, a young man named Daniel Price, leaned close. Ambassador, what do we do now? Lisa pulled out a small communication device. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes had grown cold. We go home, she said quietly. And we prepare. She pressed a button on the device and spoke clearly into it. Admiral Lawson, this is Ambassador Monroe. The Zilari have rejected our warning. The Zilari have rejected our warning. They plan to enter human space within the month. Activate Protocol Remembrance. The galaxy has forgotten. It is time to remind them. On the other end, a deep voice responded immediately. Understood, Ambassador. Protocol Remembrance is now active. May God have mercy on them, because we will not. Lisa tucked the device away and stood. She gave one final look at High Counselor Vorath, who was celebrating with his officers across the chamber. He would not be celebrating for long. The humans were coming home, and they were bringing 200 years of preparation with them. The border of human space was marked by nothing. No stations, no signs, no patrols visible to the eye. Just empty space stretching in all directions. To the Zilari fleet, it looked like exactly what they expected. Abandoned territory held by a dying species. General Vorath Kin stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's pride. He was the nephew of High Counselor Vorath, chosen to lead this historic mission. 300 warships followed behind him, the largest Zilari fleet ever assembled. Each ship was armed with the finest weapons their empire could build. General, his sensor officer called out. We are detecting 12 human vessels ahead. Small patrol ships. Nothing more. Vorath Kin smiled. 12 ships against 300. The humans were either brave or stupid. Open a channel to them, he ordered. The view screen flickered, and a human face appeared. Captain Nathan Cole of the USS Sentinel looked back at the Zilari general with a steady gaze. He was a man in his 40s, with short brown hair and tired eyes. Behind him, his crew worked their stations in silence. General Vorath Kin, Nathan said calmly. I am Captain Nathan Cole of the Sol Defense Fleet. You are approaching the border of human territory. This is your final warning. Turn your fleet around and leave. There will be no second chance. Vorath Kin laughed loudly. His bridge crew joined him. 12 ships threatened 300, he said. Captain, you are either very brave or very foolish. The Zilari Dominion does not take orders from lesser species. Stand aside, or we will remove you. Nathan Cole did not smile. His expression did not change at all. General, I am asking you one more time. Do not cross this line. I know you think we are weak. I know you think this will be easy. You are wrong. If you enter human space, you will not leave. Not your ships. Not your soldiers. Not even your memory. This is not a threat. This is truth. Voreth Kin waved his hand dismissively. Enough of this. All ships, weapons ready. Destroy these patrol vessels. The channel closed. Nathan turned to his first officer, Commander Ryan Peters. Commander, signal the fleet. Execute retreat pattern Delta. Send all sensor data to Sol Command immediately. Ryan nodded and began giving orders. The 12 human ships turned and began moving away from the border at high speed. On the Zilari Bridge, laughter filled the air. They run! Voreth Kin shouted triumphantly. The mighty humans run from our power. All ships, pursue and destroy. The Zilari fleet crossed the invisible border and entered human space. For a moment, nothing happened. The Zilari ships chased the retreating human patrol, firing their weapons. One shot struck a small human escort vessel, the USS Dawn. It exploded in a ball of fire. First blood. Voreth Kin cheered. The humans will learn to fear the Zilari. But Captain Nathan Cole did not react to the loss. He simply pressed a button on his console and spoke quietly. Sol Command, the line has been crossed. USS Dawn is lost. All hands gone. Protocol remembrance is confirmed. Awaken the sleepers. Deep in the heart of human space, something changed in an asteroid belt near the fourth planet. Lights flickered on in places that had been dark for 2 centuries. Power flowed through ancient systems. Weapons long forgotten began to warm up. And artificial minds that had waited patiently for 200 years finally opened their eyes. The humans had not been idle during their isolation. They had been preparing. Every asteroid, every moon, every empty stretch of space hid something deadly. Weapons platforms, drone factories, sensor nets, and machines that had no other purpose but war. The Zilari fleet pushed deeper into human territory. They found abandoned stations floating in the darkness, empty colonies on barren moons, silent ships drifting without power. They have fled, Voreth Kin announced to his fleet. The humans are cowards. They leave their homes rather than face us. This territory is ours. His officers cheered. But one of them, a young female named Lieutenant Syra, looked at her sensor display with worry. General, she said quietly, I am reading strange energy signatures ahead. Very faint. They seem to be coming from everywhere. Voreth Kin ignored her. Probably old equipment left behind. Continue forward. They traveled for 3 more hours. The emptiness stretched on. No resistance. No contact. Just silence. Then one of the scout ships at the edge of the formation simply vanished. What happened to the Seeker? Voreth Kin demanded. Lieutenant Syra checked her displays frantically. Unknown, General. It was there, and then it was not. No debris. No distress signal. No weapon fire detected. Another ship vanished. Then another. Shields up. Voreth Kin shouted. All ships, defensive formation. But there was nothing to defend against. No enemy ships appeared. No weapons fire was visible. Ships simply stopped existing, one after another, pulled into the darkness by invisible hands. In 10 minutes, the Zilari lost 40 ships. 40 ships with thousands of soldiers, gone without a trace. Voreth Kin stared at his view screen in shock. For the first time, real fear crept into his heart. General, Lieutenant Syra whispered, I am detecting movement. From the asteroids. From the moons. From everywhere. The view screen showed the space around them coming alive. Shapes emerged from asteroids. Platforms rose from the surfaces of dead moons. Thousands of small drones poured out from hidden factories built into the rocks themselves. And behind them, where the Zilari had entered, space rippled. Human warships decloaked in perfect formation, blocking any retreat. Not 12 ships, hundreds. A transmission came through. Captain Nathan Cole's face appeared again on the view screen. "General Vareth Kim," he said calmly. "Welcome to human space. You were warned. You did not listen. Now you will learn what every species eventually learns about humanity." He paused, and for the first time, something like sadness crossed his face. "We do not start wars, General, but we always finish them." The transmission ended. All around the Zilari fleet, weapons powered up. Targeting systems locked on. And the machines that humanity had built waited for the single command that would end everything. "General." Voreth Kin looked at the trap closing around him. He finally understood the truth that his uncle had refused to believe. The humans had not been hiding. They had been waiting. On Mars, deep beneath the red surface, Dr. Christina Hayes sat in a control room that had not seen activity in over a century. Screens surrounded her, showing data from across human space. Every sensor, every weapon, every hidden defense system reported to this single location. She was not alone. Around her, dozens of technicians worked at their stations. They were the keepers of humanity's greatest secret, the Prometheus Network. Dr. Hayes, a young technician, called out, "The Zilari fleet is fully inside the trap zone. Admiral Lawson is requesting full network activation." Christina looked at her main screen. 300 enemy ships sat in the middle of human territory, surrounded by weapons they could not see. For 200 years, she had maintained these systems. She had hoped they would never be needed. Hope, it seemed, was not enough. "Activate the Prometheus Network," she said quietly. "All nodes, all systems. Wake them up." Across human space, something ancient stirred. The Prometheus Network was not just a defense system. It was a mind. Thousands of artificial intelligences, connected together, designed for a single purpose: the protection of humanity. They had slept for 2 centuries, dreaming of mathematics and strategy. Now they opened their eyes and saw enemies in their home. General Vareth Kin watched his tactical display with growing horror. Red markers appeared everywhere. From asteroids, from moons, from the rings of gas giants, from places his scanners had shown as empty rock. "How many weapons platforms are activating?" he demanded. Lieutenant Syra's voice shook. "I am counting over 6,000, General. And more are appearing every minute." 6,000. Against his 300 ships. "All ships, open fire on the nearest platforms." Vareth Kin ordered. "Destroy them before they can target us." The Zilari fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons roared. Missiles streaked across space. Thousands of shots poured toward the awakening defenses. The Prometheus Network responded. Every human weapon fired at exactly the same moment, guided by minds that thought faster than any living creature. Zilari missiles were shot out of space before they traveled half the distance. Plasma blasts were absorbed by shields that adjusted their frequencies 1,000 times per second. And then the network attacked. Beams of light crossed the darkness. They struck with perfect accuracy, cutting through Zilari shields like they were not there. Ships exploded. Debris scattered. In 60 seconds, the Zilari lost another 40 vessels. Vareth Kin gripped his command chair. His confidence had completely disappeared. "Retreat," he shouted. "All ships, fall back to the border." The fleet turned and ran. But behind them, where they had entered, the human warships waited. They had not moved. They had not fired. They simply blocked the only exit. A wall of metal and weapons that stretched across the stars. A new transmission appeared on the Zalari view screen. Admiral Derek Lawson looked back at General Vareth Kin. He was an older man with white hair and a face carved from stone. Behind him, the bridge of the USS Vanguard hummed with quiet activity. "General Vareth Kin," Admiral Lawson said. His voice was cold, but not angry. "I am Admiral Derek Lawson, commander of the Sol Defense Fleet. You have invaded human territory. You have destroyed one of our ships and killed 37 of our people." He paused, letting the words sink in. "You were warned. By our ambassador. By the Thrin Elder. By centuries of history. You did not listen. And now you will see why no species enters human space." Vareth Kin leaned forward. "Admiral, we can negotiate." This was a misunderstanding. "The Zalari Dominion is willing to discuss terms." "There are no terms," Lawson replied. "Your counselor was offered peace. He chose war. Now war is what you will have." The transmission ended. On Mars, Dr. Christina Hayes watched the battle unfold on her screens. The Prometheus network was fully awake now, its countless minds working together in perfect harmony. It calculated firing solutions, predicted enemy movements, and coordinated thousands of weapons across millions of kilometers that the Zalari tried to fight. They really did. Their captains were brave. Their soldiers were skilled. But they were facing something they could not understand. Human weapons did not miss. Human shields did not fall. Human tactics changed faster than the Zalari could react. Every time they found cover, weapons appeared behind them. Every time they concentrated fire, the target simply moved. Every time they tried something new, the network had already predicted it in 3 hours. The Zalari fleet of 300 ships became a fleet of 150. General Vareth Kin sat in his command chair, watching his forces die. Ships he had known since childhood. Officers he had trained with. Friends he had celebrated victories with. All gone. "General," Lieutenant Syra whispered. She had tears in her eyes. "What do we do?" He did not answer. He had no answer to give. Then something changed. The human weapons stopped firing. The chaos fell silent. For a moment, nothing moved. Admiral Lawson appeared on the view screen again. "General," he said, "I am giving you one chance. One chance more than you deserve. Order your remaining ships to power down their weapons and surrender. Do this, and your crews will live. Refuse, and the Prometheus network will finish what it started." Vareth Kin looked at the Admiral. He looked at the destruction around him. He thought of his uncle's proud words, his confident predictions of human weakness. "And if we surrender?" He asked quietly. "What happens to us?" "Your soldiers will be returned to Zalari space after the war is over. Your ships will be destroyed. You personally will face judgment for your actions. But you will live. Your people will live." Vareth Kin closed his eyes. Surrender meant humiliation. It meant the end of his career, his family's honor, everything he had worked for. But the alternative was death. Death for thousands of Zalari, who had simply followed orders. He opened his mouth to speak, and then his communications officer shouted, "General, message from the Dominion. High Counselor Vareth orders us to continue fighting. He is sending reinforcements. 200 more ships." Vareth Kin's heart sank. His uncle had doomed them all. Admiral Lawson's expression did not change. He simply nodded slowly. "So be it," he said. "The price will be paid in full." The transmission ended. The weapons powered up again. And the Prometheus network, patient and tireless, resumed its work. The machines had awakened. And they would not rest until the lesson was complete. The reinforcements arrived 3 days later. 200 fresh Zalari warships jumped into human space. Led by Admiral Theron, High Council of Varath's most trusted commander. They expected to find a struggling fleet holding the line against primitive human defenses. Instead, they found a graveyard. Debris floated everywhere. Broken ships drifted in the darkness. Fires still burned in some of the wreckage, small points of orange light against the black. Of the original 300 ships, only 80 remained. They huddled together in the center of the destruction, shields flickering, weapons damaged, crews exhausted. Admiral Theron stared at his view screen in silence. "All forces," he finally said. "Form up with the survivors. Prepare for coordinated attack." But before his ships could move, space rippled around them. Human warships decloaked in every direction. Not just the military vessels they had seen before. Cargo ships with weapons bolted to their hulls. Mining vessels converted into missile platforms. Civilian transports carrying soldiers and guns. The entire human species had answered the call. Captain Nathan Cole sat on the bridge of the rebuilt USS Sentinel. His ship had been repaired at a hidden station deeper in human space. Now he was back, and he had brought friends. "Admiral Lawson," he reported through his communicator. "All civilian volunteers are in position. We have over 600 ships ready to engage." Admiral Lawson's voice came back steady and calm. "Thank you, Captain. All forces, this is Admiral Lawson. Today we remind the galaxy why humanity is left alone. Today we show them the price of attacking our home." He paused for a moment, then spoke the words that every human knew. "For Earth, for our fallen. No mercy." 600 voices answered as one. "No mercy." The battle began. Zilari ships fought bravely. They had no choice. The humans attacked from every direction, their movements coordinated by the Prometheus network. Human pilots flew with reckless courage, pushing their ships beyond safe limits. Human gunners fired with cold precision, hitting targets that seemed impossible to reach. Admiral Theron tried everything. He split his fleet. He concentrated his fleet. He charged forward. He fell back. Nothing worked. The humans adapted faster than he could think. Every trick he tried was countered before it could succeed. General Varath Kin watched from his damaged flagship. His ship was barely functioning. Half his crew was dead. But he refused to abandon his people. "General," Lieutenant Syra said weakly. She was wounded, her arm wrapped in bloody bandages. "I am detecting a transmission from Nexera Prime. High Counselor Varath is watching." Varath Kin laughed bitterly. "Of course he is. Safe in his council chamber while we die for his pride." He pressed a button and opened the channel to his uncle's flagship. "Uncle," he said coldly, "do you see what you have done? Do you see our people dying because you refuse to listen?" High Counselor Varath's voice came back, still confident despite everything. "Fight harder, nephew. Show these humans the strength of the Zilari." "There is no strength left," Varath Kin shouted. "We have lost over 300 ships. Thousands of our people are dead. And for what? For a shortcut through space? For your ego?" The channel fell silent. Outside, the battle continued. Human ships swarmed the Zilari formation like angry insects. They took losses too. Small civilian ships exploding under Zilari fire, crews dying for their home. But for every human ship that fell, 5 Zilari ships burned. On the USS Vanguard, Admiral Lawson watched the destruction with tired eyes. He had seen war before. He had hoped never to see it again. But here he was, ordering the deaths of thousands because one species refused to believe the warnings. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a surrender request from the Zilari fleet." Lawson shook his head slowly. "Which ship is requesting surrender?" "The Dominion's Pride, sir." "General Varath Kin." Lawson considered for a moment. Then he opened a channel to the entire battlefield. "General Varath Kin, he said. Your surrender is noted. However, the price has not yet been paid. Your counselor ordered these ships to attack our home. Until he personally surrenders and accepts responsibility, this battle continues. On Nexera Prime, High Counselor Varath watched the transmission in his private chamber. His advisors surrounded him, their faces pale with fear. Counselor, one of them said quietly, if you do not surrender, the entire fleet will be destroyed. Our military power will be gone. The Zilari Dominion will fall. Varath stared at the screen. He watched his nephew's ship take another hit, flames spreading across its hull. He watched Zilari vessels explode one after another. He watched everything he had built burning in the darkness of human space. Finally, he spoke. Open a channel to the human admiral. The connection was made. Admiral Lawson's face appeared on the screen. Admiral Lawson, Varath said slowly, each word painful. I, High Counselor Varath of the Zilari Dominion, accept full responsibility for this invasion. I surrender unconditionally. Please stop the destruction. Lawson studied him for a long moment. Your surrender is accepted, he said. All human forces cease fire. The battle is over. Across the battlefield, weapons fell silent. Ships stopped their attacks. The screaming of alarms faded into quiet. Thousands of Zilari soldiers wept with relief as death stepped back from their doors. But Admiral Lawson was not finished. High Counselor Varath, he continued, you will broadcast a full confession to the Galactic Council. You will admit that you were warned and chose to attack anyway. You will accept whatever punishment the Council decides. And you will allow 12 of your ships to leave, carrying recordings of this battle, so that every species in the galaxy will see what happens when they enter human space. Varath bowed his head. I accept. One more thing, Lawson said quietly. 200 years ago, we destroyed the Varathi Collective for killing 4 million of our people. Today, you have lost perhaps 100,000 soldiers. Remember this mercy, Counselor. Remember that we could have done so much worse. And remember that next time, we will. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, General Varath Kin looked out at the ruined remains of his fleet. 80 ships had entered this battle. Only 12 would leave. The price had been paid, but he knew, deep in his heart, that the galaxy would never forget the cost. 3 months had passed since the battle. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexera Prime had never been so quiet. Every seat was filled. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in perfect silence, their eyes fixed on the central platform. Ambassador Lisa Monroe walked slowly to the speaking position. Behind her stood Admiral Derek Lawson in his formal uniform and Captain Nathan Cole, recently promoted for his service. They did not speak. They did not need to. The recording of the battle had been seen by everyone. Every species in the galaxy had watched the Zilari fleet burn. They had seen the human defenses awaken. They had heard the warnings given and ignored. And they had understood, finally, why human space had been closed for 2 centuries. High Counselor Varath sat in the Zilari section. He was a broken man now. His scales had lost their shine. His eyes held no confidence. The greatest leader in Zilari history had become its greatest failure. Lisa Monroe looked out at the assembled council and began to speak. 3 months ago, the Zilari Dominion chose to ignore our warnings. They believed that our silence was weakness. They believed that our isolation was fear. They believed that 200 years of peace meant we had forgotten how to fight. She paused, letting her words hang in the air. They were wrong. The chamber remained silent. Some representatives could not meet her eyes. We did not want this war, Lisa continued. We have never wanted war. For 2 centuries, we asked only to be left alone. We traded with no one. We threatened no one. We simply existed in our corner of the galaxy, hoping that the past would stay in the past. She looked directly at the Zalari section. But you came anyway. You crossed our borders. You destroyed one of our ships. You killed 37 of our people. And then you sent reinforcements, even after we offered mercy. High Counselor Vorath lowered his head in shame. The Zalari lost over 400 ships and 100,000 soldiers. This was the price of one counselor's pride. 100,000 families destroyed because one person refused to listen. Lisa's voice softened slightly. We take no pleasure in this. Every Zalari death weighs on our conscience. Every life lost was a tragedy that could have been avoided. But we will not apologize for defending our home. We will not apologize for keeping our promise. She turned to address the full council. Today, I present humanity's terms for peace. First, the Galactic Council will formally recognize human territory as permanently restricted. No species may enter without explicit human permission. Second, the Zalari Dominion will pay reparations to the families of the USS Dawn crew. Third, High Counselor Vorath will step down from his position and face judgment by his own people. Vorath nodded slowly. He had already accepted these terms in private. He had no choice. Finally, Lisa said, the recording of this battle will be preserved in the Council's archives. Every species will have access to it. Every child in the galaxy will learn what happened when the warnings were ignored. This is not revenge. This is education. The galaxy must remember. From the elder section, Cathan of the Thrin rose to speak. His ancient voice carried clearly through the silent chamber. 200 years ago, I warned the Varathi. They did not listen. Today, I warned the Zalari. They did not listen. Perhaps now, finally, the galaxy will understand. He looked around at the young faces staring back at him. Humanity is not cruel. They did not seek this war. They did not enjoy this victory. But they will protect their home with everything they have. This has always been true. This will always be true. Remember this lesson, children. Remember it well. He sat back down slowly. Ambassador Lisa Monroe prepared to step away from the platform, but Captain Nathan Cole moved forward. He had asked to speak, and Lisa had agreed. I lost friends in this war, Nathan said quietly. Good people who died because someone else refused to believe the truth. I watched Zalari ships burn and felt no satisfaction. Only sadness. Only waste. He looked at the Zalari delegation. Your soldiers fought bravely. They followed orders from leaders who failed them. I do not hate the Zalari people. I hate that this happened at all. His voice grew stronger. Humanity does not want fear. We do not want worship. We do not want the galaxy to see us as monsters. We want only peace. But peace requires respect. It requires listening. It requires believing that when we say our borders are closed, we mean it. He stepped back to stand beside Admiral Lawson. Lisa Monroe returned to the platform one final time. The Council will now vote on accepting humanity's terms. The vote was unanimous. Every single species voted yes. There was no discussion, no debate, no objection. Human space was now protected by galactic law. As the chamber emptied, a young Zalari child walked beside her mother through the corridors of the council building. She stopped at a large display showing a map of the galaxy. A dark section was marked with simple words: human territory. Restricted, no entry. Mother, the child asked, why is that part of the map different? What is there? Her mother looked at the dark space for a long moment. Memories of the battle recordings flashed through her mind. The fire, the destruction, the cold human voices giving warnings that went unheeded. That is where the humans live, she said softly. We do not go there. Why not? Her mother knelt down and looked into her daughter's eyes. Because some doors should never be opened, little one, and some lessons should never be forgotten. She took her daughter's hand and led her away from the map. But the child looked back one more time at the dark space marked as forbiddance. Somewhere in that darkness, humanity continued its quiet existence. They repaired their damaged ships. They mourned their lost friends. They returned to their homes and their families and their peaceful lives. They did not celebrate their victory. They never did, but they remained ready. They always would, because the galaxy had finally remembered what the humans had. Never forgotten. Some prices are too high to pay. And some warnings must be believed. The door to human space stayed closed. And now, at last, no one would ever try to open it again.